On the line right now is Jennifer Stromer Galley. She is a professor at Syracuse University, and she's been doing a study on social media and how it is affecting this election. Good morning, Jennifer. Thanks for coming on.
No, it's not. She's saying.
Oh, she's not on? The lines are all loaded? What? I don't know what I'm putting on the air here.
What happened? The lines are all loaded up.
The lines are loaded up because of the Nutcracker. I'm not talking about that Christmas show. I'm talking about the Hillary Clinton Nutcracker.
That's funny.
Okay, so I guess I don't have her. I thought she was on that line. Anyway, she's been doing a study on the way social media is affecting this election. And I remember back when running my very first campaign, saying the internet is we do no advertising on the internet because it's not effective. It doesn't reach people. It's not. Well, that has changed, hasn't it?
Well, yeah. Especially on my news feed this morning. In the past week, I've seen a commercial about Chuck Schumer not being cool, but, he's trying to appeal to the...
he is all over social media.
Yeah, on Facebook and everything. Sponsored ad, but it's like the first thing when you go to your news feed, he's right at the top.
Is there no restriction? I guess my question is on television, radio, and internet. Is there no restriction on how truthful your claims must be? No, right? I guess there isn't. Some of the things I've seen are just unbelievable.
Well, like I was just talking about, the how can you say that Kim Myers is shipping jobs to China because Dick's Sporting Goods is manufacturing their products in China? How can you say that? Dick's Sporting Goods doesn't manufacture products. So, but there's got to be the way it's done is there's a fine line, and there's always a little credit that goes down at the bottom. There's a fine line that they find some way to be able to say, well, yeah, this is true. It's just kind of the way we worded it, and we took it out of context.
Is there a Dick's brand for, I don't know, socks or water bottles or something?
Maybe there's some. Maybe they made water bottles. I don't know.
No, the only thing like that would be that they would print the logo on a product that was already
that's
made.
What I mean.
But
like
you have Dick's experience. You've worked at Dick's, so. Yeah. Do they have like water bottles?
Yeah, I mean, like they've got like the seat cushions for stadium seats with their logo on it, but it doesn't mean that it was actually manufactured.
Right, and you could get like a Keeler in the morning.
So there's your
seat made.
So there is your China thing.
I'm
That's
wondering
probably where they're able to
that they maybe slapped a labal on in production in China.
Those products are very difficult to find made in the United States. All that crap.
Anything nowadays.
Tough. Yeah, well, that's true, too. All right, we were just talking about Jennifer Stromer Galley, professor at Syracuse University, and her study that she's been looking into social media. And a Pew study was just recently out, 75% of Americans online, and over 70% of Facebook that are on Facebook, the public is finding news through social media like never before. Jennifer, good morning.
Good morning, Phil. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming on. What did you find during this whole thing?
Well, one of the things we found that's kind of interesting, we've been looking at Twitter and Facebook and what the presidential candidates are saying on those outlets. And let me ask you a question. So do you think that Clinton is more negative on social media or Trump?
Hillary, I think.
I would say
I've seen more
probably
Hillary
because of their attacks on all the Trump stuff.
Actually, you got it. So it turns out, and I've been asking this question to a lot of people over the last while, and
I'm assuming people would automatically they would say Trump, right?
Yeah, because there's this when he does go on the attack, he tends to be a bit provocative, right, in the way that he cricket Hillary, those kinds of things, and we remember that.
Yeah.
But proportionally, actually, Clinton's social media is much more negative, sometimes as much as 3 times more attack messages on Twitter and Facebook.
And my guess would be part of that is because I would guess her machine is far bigger, stronger, more effective in terms of, she's got more of a political machine behind her, whereas Trump's campaign has really been a bit unorthodox without that big machine putting all this. A lot of it is Trump sending stuff out, and we pay attention to it.
You got it. That's a huge portion of it.
Yeah.
I think, he controls his Twitter account at least some portion of the day. We think anyway.
Yeah.
And she's got a large paid staff. Trump has not put resources into really all aspects of his campaign, from field organizing all the way up to social media, and so that volume makes a difference. But it does, it suggests that the ways that candidates are using their social media are actually pretty different. I've been surprised, actually. We've just been looking here at the appeals for people to vote, because we've got 7, 8, 10 states now, I think, that are doing early voting.
Right.
And so those calls to remind people to vote. But again, on Clinton's side, there's usually about twice as much messaging that's urging people to vote than on the Trump side. And those are lost opportunities, I think, for the Trump campaign. Social media reaches such a large portion of the public these days, especially with Facebook. And, those little nudges like, hey, don't forget to vote,
right,
those things actually matter. They do get people to turn out who might otherwise not be thinking about it or forget or just not realize that they've got a state that they can vote early. So those things matter.
And I'm assuming this really targets a younger demographic that isn't necessarily watching TV news or television today.
Well, a couple things on that. So the first thing is that actually people are still, it is the case, you're right, that younger people are less likely to watch television news to get their political information. But Facebook reaches pretty much every demographic except, our grandparents are less likely to be on Facebook. But you and I are on Facebook. People in our age, us old folks, we're there too. And so Facebook actually is like television now. It reaches between people who are on Facebook and then their friends who are on Facebook. It pretty much reaches everybody.
And what's interesting, too, is if you're not a big Facebook person, you still get it, because what happens is the links that are sent to your email or through text messages, you then click on them and it takes you to that story. That element is really effective as well, I think.
Yeah, you got it. Absolutely. Or people who see stuff in their news feed and they're like, oh, that's interesting, and then they go to the news article and then they share it with a friend who isn't on Facebook, but it's on email, and so that stuff is ubiquitous. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Are you noticing that people are more apt to get involved or vote or not vote because of what their friends are doing on Facebook or what their Twitter followers are doing?
Well, so there was an interesting study done in 2012. It was an experiment actually on Facebook. So if you use Facebook, you might have been part of the experiment, whether you knew it or not. And basically, a portion of the public received a little notification. So basically, people... Sorry, I'm complicating this. So if on Election Day, people could go onto Facebook and download a little application that would say, I voted or not. And so once they finished voting, they could click the little button, and on their news feed, it would say that, Sally voted. And a portion of the followers for Sally saw this, I voted, and a portion didn't. Facebook tracked who those folks were who got the notification and those who didn't, and then went back to the public records to see who had actually shown up to vote on that election day. Now, this isn't Facebook. It's Facebook researchers, right?
Yeah.
So these are academics who are doing research with Facebook. What they found is that people who actually saw that Sally voted were statistically significantly more likely to then vote.
Wow. That is, it shows how just by, it's almost that...
everybody's doing it.
It's almost a peer pressure, right?
It's a peer pressure thing.
Yeah.
Well, so I grew up in Minnesota, and when you left the polling place, you got that little orange I voted sticker.
Right.
And so you go through the day with that little I voted sticker on your lapel, and people would say and go, oh, right, it's Election Day. And that stuff, it really does matter. So those little nudges do make a difference.
Yeah.
You know what I'd like to see is the study that says if you have a friend on Facebook who you think is an idiot, especially politically, and they're supporting candidate X, does it automatically make you like candidate Y that much better? You know what I mean?
Well, there is a that would end.
I think that's
election.
true.
Holy moly! Okay, and what about the who's? I guess I would ask you who is more effective? Which candidate is using social media more effectively?
It's such a good question. I'd want to say Clinton, in part because she has such a large machine behind her.
Yeah.
Her staff is very savvy. They've worked through several election cycles now. They get how social media works. They're using analytics. They're micro-targeting, all that stuff that suggests that they'd be doing an effective job. The thing is that Trump, his style works in the age of social media.
Right.
So while he isn't as active, if you will, and while the messages... the negativity can be a bit demoralizing at times. He is I mean, think about all the earned media. I was just looking at this NARS article. Media Quant did an analysis in the spring to look at the amount of earned or free media that Trump received versus really any of his Republican opponents. And, he received $3 billion in free media coming into the primaries, while Ted Cruz, for example, received about $700 million. Sorry, what did I just say? $3 billion. I want to make sure I got the numbers right. It's early. $3 billion in earned media, and Cruz received about $700 million in earned media.
Wow.
And we're actually working on a study right now to see to what degree did Trump's Twitter messaging shape the news media's coverage of him in those early voting days and even in the surfacing stage. Because my hunch is that his provocativeness, his style, his authenticity, it's Trump. It's Trump.
Right.
And that, I think, in the age of social media, that matters. And so while Clinton can be producing the most pretty messages and, well photoshopped, etc., they're not authentic. And in social media, it's all about authenticity. It has that in spades.
It is, and I got to tell you, put up a nice little video of your puppy on Facebook or YouTube, and especially on YouTube. And then you'll have this mob of people that'll be like, "Oh, that's a stupid puppy. What kind of an idiot puts that up?" And that type of that works. That's the stuff that gets shared, especially on YouTube and Twitter.
Absolutely. And so the stuff that's cute, the stuff that's provocative, the stuff that makes you go, "Wait a minute," that catches your attention, that's a bit uncouth, right? I mean, Trump is all about that, and I think that really works in this age.
Your puppy has a horse face. Okay, well, listen, interesting stuff, Jennifer. Thanks so much for sharing that, and we appreciate your time.
Sure thing. Take care.
Okay, you too. Thanks. I hung up on her. I'm so sorry.